Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining our first WAM event of 2021. I'm Monica Hauser-Wolf, and I am a Motorola and Lenovo employee on the WAM board. And I'm really excited to have so many folks joining us today, not just for our first event of 2021, but our first event in a new series that we're calling Small Bites. So we know that at this point in time, a lot of folks are really sick of Zoom calls. They're really sick of long panels and all of that. So when the WAM board came together, we were thinking, what can we do to still bring the WAM community together in a way that's really meaningful? We also know that, especially for women, our lives have often gotten more hectic with schools being shut down and working from home. So we're really hoping that this Small Bite series kind of blocks off people's time so that you have some time for lunch. I hope you've taken some time to grab your lunch and you can just sit and relax and hopefully indulge in another thing you may be missing, which is time with executives in your office. So I'm really happy to be leading this first event in our series, and even happier to have Mary Pat Bitter, and an executive that I know I've really missed seeing around the hallways of Motorola. So welcome, Mary Pat, and thank you so much for being our first guest.
Well, thank you, Monica, and thank you to the WAM community for having me. This is kind of exciting for me. I'm used to being the one in the audience, listening to everybody else and asking questions. So this is definitely a different seat for me to be in.
Welcome. It's awesome to have you. And I wonder if you could start by talking about your role at Motorola. What do you do at Motorola?
Sure. So I am the North America CFO for the go-to-market business in MBG. So I'm responsible, for those that are not aware, we make handsets, right? Android handsets, and we've been doing that for many years. I've been with the company for 29 years, just hit 29 in December. And I probably had about 20 jobs during that time. And, one of the things I get to do, which is really a lot of fun, is I get to partner with a big cross-functional team of salespeople, of business operations people, strategy, sales ops, marketing. And it's really kind of fun to be a finance person and have a seat at the table and really be involved in everything going on.
Would you say Would you say that's your favorite part of your job at Motorola? Is there something else that you really look forward to every day?
Yeah, I really look forward to the people. I like what we sell. I like our products, but it's really about working with the team. Anytime that I present, as the finance person over North America, I think of my job as watching out for the family, right? I think of us as one big happy family, and really I work with a lot of people, and everybody is really great to work with. So it really comes down to that.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So, you mentioned you were at Motorola for 29 years. Motorola is a tech company, and that kind of brings us into our first topic for today. Tech is super fast paced. It's always changing. But then I want to acknowledge that in your 29 years at Motorola, you've seen a ton of change. I mean, it started as Motorola Inc., split into Solutions and Motorola Mobility. Then Motorola Mobility was acquired by Google. And then Motorola Mobility was purchased by Lenovo. So that is a ton of external change in an industry that already sees so much change. What are your strategies for overcoming all of that external change happening around you?
It's really interesting because of the 29 years, most of that change has happened in the last 10.
Oh.
So it's really been interesting, right? Because for so many years, the company gets set in their ways. And, as they change from different divisions to different pieces, at one point we had 7 pieces of the business, and then, we had more, and then we had less. And, the interesting part is, as we went from piece to piece, each time you kind of have to take a deep breath and think about, what's my role in this, and, how am I going to work my way through? So when we spun off from Motorola Solutions, it was exciting and scary at the same time because they had been more of a cash cow and we had been more of a fast growing business. So as a finance person, you worry about things when you're growing, you're growing fast. You need to make sure that you make decisions that you can balance in your checkbook, right? So that presented some of its own challenges. And then being acquired by Google was really great. I mean, what a great company to be acquired by. But some of the challenges that brought on was a group that kind of came in and felt that they really understood our business when they didn't necessarily understand our business. So some of that was overcoming the challenges of making sure that they understood who the experts were. And, that actually took some time. And I think that anybody who was involved in that knew that there were some growing pains. But with that, we got, a lot of benefits that are still with us today as we're part of Lenovo. Fantastic maternity leaves for women having babies, even for men having babies. I believe that it's still like 7 weeks that they get for, baby being born, and a variety of other great benefits that we still have. So, with each of the moves, there's been pluses and then there's been some challenges. The move to Lenovo has been my personal favorite. And the reason for that is the first time that YY and Y Ming, our CEO and our CFO, came in to talk to us in Libertyville, they told us that they were very interested in the people of the business and the skill sets that we brought and the knowledge that we had and what we had to contribute. And that over the years that we've been part of the team has been evident. Many of the positives that we brought as a business have been rolled out to the rest of the company. And, they're sharing back and forth. But generally speaking, when you see acquisitions, you often see that the parent company says, my way is the best way, and we're going to do it my way. And that has not been the case. So it's really been in my opinion, a very pleasant transition.
That's awesome to hear. And it sounds like in all of that change, you've been able to acknowledge the changes, but then also see opportunities and positive things that come from it all. And I love your advice just to take a deep breath. I know that with so many things externally happening around all of the people on this call, this year in particularly, I've also really just been needing to step back, take a deep breath, and understand what you have control over and what you don't, and look for the opportunities, like you said.
Totally.
Yeah. And what was your personal, in addition to the acquisitions and stuff, there was the move from Libertyville, where the office site was, to the Mart. And if I can ask about that, with all of the changes, what's been the biggest challenge? What's been your biggest personal challenge or professional challenge between acquisitions, change of office site, all of that?
It's kind of interesting that you say that, because it brings up a story. When it came up that we were going to move to the Mart, I felt like, oh, are you kidding me? We lived in the suburbs. We were 7 miles from, we lived on 7 miles on either side of Libertyville, in the time that I was there. And my thought was, that was in 2014 that we moved, so 6 years ago. My thought was, I've been with the company for 23 years. I'm going to give this a shot and see where it goes. But it wouldn't be a bad thing to make a move and stay in the suburbs. But at the time we were doing that, I was kind of tired. I've been in many of the Motorola facilities all over the Chicagoland area, but never downtown, right? Kind of an easy drive from home sort of thing, 20, 30 minutes. And I said, I'm going to give this a shot. And if it doesn't work, I'll look for something else. Now's a great time. So I started that first day in February of 2014, taking the train. And I absolutely loved being downtown. I loved going down there. I loved the views. I loved just being in the office there. It was nice to get away. You find your path. You find your way to do it. The train ride, was great. I had an hour each way to work and catch up on email. And I got to the point where I said, I'm going to just ride the train all day long because I get so much done on it. And once I get off the train on either end, I get nothing done, it feels like. So, that was definitely a challenge. And I thought to myself, it's amazing because I went into this with that thought, and then I absolutely loved it. And it didn't take long. It was like a month. And then I was like, I don't know how we did this any other way. And, the challenge came up again as we were leading into March 13th of this year and of 2020, the whole, coronavirus and the pandemic and what are we going to do? And there was a group of us that sat in an office, and I was a big fan of my team is in the office all the time. I think collectively before that, I had worked from home 5 days in my entire career. I just like to be in the office. And so there was 4 of us, and 2 of us were like, we need to be in the office, and 2 were like, it doesn't matter. And those that said it didn't matter had teams that really were pretty much global. So they were already used to that. And so March 13th was my last day in the office. I have not worked in the office since then. And it's another transition that's been amazing. I'm far more productive, probably because I'm not visiting. I love to chat. I haven't been visiting with people as much. And people set up meetings and you get things done. So, my advice is to, where if I could give it, is that embrace the change, be open to it, and see what comes of it. Don't have your mind set on certain things before you try it. It's like us as kids growing up and our parents tell us to try these foods we don't like.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's kind of similar.
That's awesome. I love that insight. And I think you kind of touched on it, but our next topic was really going to be about knowing when to make change for yourself and knowing when it's the right time for you to kind of create your own change rather than let it happen around you. And, in our preparation for this chat and everything, I hadn't heard you reflect on it as much as with that transition from Libertyville to the Mart. And I wonder, have there been other times in your life where, like, what are your guiding values or signals for when you want to make a change for yourself?
It's really good. I'll give you 2 examples. In my own career, I would say, I've had 20 jobs, right? As I had mentioned, or 20 different roles, and there's been variations of them. But the thing that I found is that you absolutely have to be open. There have been times, I would say half the jobs I've had were jobs that I was like, I definitely want to do this. And then there were other times that things kind of came my way and I was open to them. So my biggest advice is just to be open, because to anything. If somebody comes to you with an opportunity and it isn't one of the 5 or 7 that you have on your list, hear it out and see what the benefits could come of that. Because from a rewarding standpoint, and even sometimes financially rewarding, the jobs that have found me have oftentimes been more rewarding than the jobs that I thought I wanted. So, if have been a number of roles that a manager approached me and said, hey, this is what's going on and this is what we would like you to do. And one of them was treasury and cash management. And I had no experience in that. And said, here's an opportunity on my staff and blah, 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 blah. And I sat back and I go, what are the other choices? and I went off and I did that. And I learned so much. So part of it could be sometimes when you go seek things out, you have a set of expectations, and maybe that doesn't live up to exactly what you thought. And when you try something new or something that's found you, sometimes it's just far more rewarding because you don't have expectations. So that's the one example. And then another one is, and let me check to make sure that none of these, not that it matters, but this person will know who this person is if they hear this. There was somebody who worked for me one time who came to me and said, I absolutely love the team. I love being in finance and I don't want to leave the company. There's not a lot happening here in finance right now, and there's not as many roles. what is something I can, I want you to know that I want in the next year, I want to do something different, but those are my criteria, right? I'd like to stay in finance and I don't want to leave the company. So we kind of talked about it and we went and we looked, and this person ultimately got a job probably it was kind of like, instead of being on another manager's team, he kind of became a peer to a lot of the managers in a role that we didn't even really have before. So I think that the key thing that's important when managing your career is not only be open, but talk to your managers. And, you may see 7 roles, right? And you think to yourself, I can only do 2 of those roles because those put me further along the path of where I want to be in my career. But if you talk to your manager, the manager may think, oh, this person's really good at this, or this person's really good at this. This might be a nice role for them. Or maybe we could create something that will work well. So my advice is to definitely not try to internalize it. Yes, you have to own your own career, but you need to talk to people too.
How did you weigh those opportunities? So you've talked about the 20 different jobs that you've had, some of them finding you, and maybe I think it's a common experience among women that if we aren't perfectly prepared for a role that's new, or if we don't have all the experience, check all the boxes on the job requirements, maybe we don't go for it. But for you, what was the signal that you should? What made you say, yep, I'm going to go for it versus I'll pass?
So there's a couple of things that I've learned over my career, and one of them was really early on. I have had so many amazing mentors over the course of my 29 years, and I don't really see male, female. I just kind of see, and in finance, I think if you get into engineering and some fields like that, I think there's a lot more skewed one way or another. But, in finance, it's fairly open. But I have had a lot of mentors, many of which have been men. And men, I think, do approach things a little bit differently. And my one mentor, when I was probably, so it's no secret, right? Been out of school 29 years, so that makes me 39, right? But this mentor that I had told me one time, I went to him and I had said, I have these 2 jobs. They both found me, and both of the managers know that these are on my plate, and I've been told I need to choose. And one of them was in a very easy comfort zone, and the other one was really uncomfortable. And he said his advice that he has always received and he gives to people was, take the job that scares the hell out of you. So that is the advice that I go into things with. I mean, yourself, right? You know how you're going to apply yourself. And I won't say men versus women, but I will say that oftentimes I've seen that people who are like myself will only say things if they know that they are correct, right? So you try to get things as right as possible. And there's other people that kind of fly by the seat of their pants. And I would think that, and they say things and they sound right, so everybody thinks it's right. I would think that most of the people on this call probably skew a little bit toward me, where they're going to only say something that's probably accurate, or they feel is accurate. So my advice is go with your gut, right? You are probably selling yourself short, and know that you're probably doing that, and then just reach for the stars. There's so many things. Anything you put your mind to, you can do, I'm sure.
That is such wonderful advice. I love it. And I really, really like that. Even acknowledging, that a lot of opportunities have come to you, Mary Pat, you also are telling us to kind of put out the signal, put out the vibe. If we feel stuck, don't discount the ability to communicate with our manager and tell them what we're envisioning, because we may not see the full field of opportunities. That's such awesome advice.
Totally.
So, with all of that, I kind of want to transition into the next piece of it, which is how to really take care of ourselves throughout a lot of change, throughout a lot of moving pieces in life. And you're someone I really admire. In the office, I've always admired how healthy you are. We've talked a little bit about your healthy habits. And I just wonder, what are some of the healthy habits that you do every day or your rituals that really help you meet these challenges?
Okay, this is one of my favorite topics. The thing is, I think there's two components. One, I learned this many years ago, and it's just so true. It's a ground base, it's my base. You can't out exercise a bad diet. So that's the one thing that I always try to keep in mind. And I don't believe in dieting. Like I believe in your diet. Like what do you eat? And I'm not a fan of starving yourself and doing all that kind of stuff. It's like if I eat more than I should today, then I need to be more conservative tomorrow. It's not like today was a bad day, then all the rest of them are going to be bad. No, the next day can be good. Now, for those of you on this call who have never seen me, I'm 4'11" and 90 pounds. So every 5 pounds is a big deal. So I have to just kind of really monitor that. And I love to eat. But more than loving to eat, I love to run. Running is my way. Now they say my way out of stress. They say write that email and don't send it. I write that email that I want to send because something is upsetting me. I don't send it and I go and I run and I come back and I delete the email. And then I have a different perspective on it. And, everybody has a different way. You need to find what works for you. And it's got to be something that really means a lot to you. So to me, I can't have a bad day if I've run. And the reason for that is because I get up, I run, and if things are going bad, I put perspective on it and I say, I got my run in this morning. Things aren't going to be that bad. The other thing too that I want to point out is you need to break things down in pieces. You can't solve every problem all at once. This has been an especially busy week for me at work. I've had so many different things going on. I've had one of my key people who last minute had to take the week off, and I was going to count on him to do a lot of different things. I can't say, how do I get myself to Saturday? It's like, okay, what are the key things that need to happen right now? Right? And what are the things that can wait? And I think it's just about prioritizing. And then before long, you're at Saturday, everything that needed to get done, got done. And some of the stuff that didn't need to get done got reprioritized. And I think that's the important things, because I think that we can really stress ourselves out and then you almost immobilize yourself. Yeah. So keep it all in perspective, break it down into chunks and, do what's important.
I love the rituals of just making sure that, you're constantly being healthy. No amount of exercise can compensate for a bad diet. And I wonder with running, is that something that you've done in your adult life? How long have you been running? Because I understand it's something you do every day.
Yeah. It was funny. I grew up on the northwest side of Chicago, and I went to a Catholic grammar school, and we had the high school the boys' Catholic high school was sponsoring a run, and the gym teacher came to me and said, we need 5 people to go do this run. And I think I was in 5th grade, and it was 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And so he said, will you do it? And I said, yeah. And I said, and my sister will come with me, even though she was younger. I'm like, she's coming with me. So there was 5 of us, and we went and we did it. And there was however many people in the race. And it was bizarre because we took off and it just ended up being my thing. I ended up winning the race, and it was just bizarre. And my parents were like floored. They're like, we didn't know you could run. So that's kind of when it started. I played basketball and I ran track and cross country in high school. And then, when my kids were born, my kids are now 22 and 25. There was a little bit of a lull period, right? And I don't know, I'm sure there's a lot of you on this call who are in that stage, right? Where it's like, I don't even know how I'm going to get my kids bathed and dressed, let alone get my own workout in. And so I fell into a period for a while where that was difficult. But then what I did is everybody's circumstance is different. I am not one to go to a gym. because it just takes too much time, right? So I get out of bed and I run. Sometimes I run outside. A lot of times I run on a treadmill, and it really, from that standpoint, it really works out well. So I kind of went into a period where I was doing like 3 miles a day, and I got complacent with that. And it was 7 years ago, 7.5 years ago, my dad and I were, my dad's a big runner too. He's run marathons in every state. And we were out for a run on the 4th of July, which was about 16 weeks out from the Chicago Marathon. And he said to me, "How can I convince you to run the Chicago Marathon this year?" And I said, "Fine, I'll do it." And I said, "I have a goal. I'm going to do Chicago once, I'm going to do Boston once, and I'm going to be done." And so I trained for that marathon. And, each time, even in the events that you do, you learn. I trained for that marathon for 16 weeks, like somebody was chasing me. And so I did that marathon, and my first marathon was my fastest marathon, but yet I was very sore for a couple months after that. And then I did qualify for Boston, and Boston was already closed just based on the timing. So I ran Chicago again, which you can qualify and you have a couple of years to do it. And so I ran Chicago again just to stay in shape, and that's everybody's time. So I'm happy to finish up. So the bottom line is I was fortunate to be able to take my running to what I kind of deemed the next level by doing those marathons. I ran all 3 of those marathons, and as I finished the Boston Marathon, which was the coolest experience ever, to go out to Hopkinton where the marathon starts, and you basically just run into Boston. They bus you out on a bus, and it's very cool. I went all by myself. It was cold, it was raining, but standing on the starting line, just because of the way it was set up, I got to actually put my foot on the starting line of the Boston Marathon. So it was definitely just one of the coolest experiences I've had. But as I did that, I actually qualified for Boston while I was at Boston, and I said, I'm not going to do this marathon again, not anytime soon. But as I say that, my daughter, who is 25, she's run Chicago already. She qualified for Boston, but my dad, and I are all planning to do the 2021 Chicago Marathon. We're all in, so we'll have 3 generations of marathons, and that's what's brought me out of marathon retirement. But I do still run 6 to 7 miles a day, and that's what I need to do to relieve my stress. And it works. I feel happy most of the time and almost never stressed.
Thank you so much, Mary Pat. It is so awesome to hear you talk about this, and just, you're one of those people in the office that's always so consistent, so professional, and just so awesome to be around. So thank you so much. I miss seeing you in the office, and we're really grateful for your time today. Thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you. And I miss seeing you too. And I hope to see you soon.
Well, thanks, everyone. We'll send out a feedback survey, and I hope you enjoyed our first Small Bites series. Thanks, Mary Pat.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.